right, so I have a theory that I want to I want to explore. And this is for you nerds out there, you guys who like nerdy stuff. You guys know I talk about a lot of things. I am a nerd of some sort. I'm not necessarily a Trekkie. I like to watch The Expanse because I like space stuff. I get into some paranormal stuff. If you really want to watch some paranormal stuff, go to Paranormal Junkie. Watch his stuff. He's a recluse, but he is really good at what he reports. And I want to say, hey, good afternoon, the chosen one. So if you want to talk about UFOs, here we go. Now, I want to make clear that I do not claim to be an aficionado of anything. I just want to talk about what I believe is a theory. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I was listening to a hearing that took place at the Pentagon. And some of what they said, it's an hour and 24 minutes on YouTube. You can listen to it. And the Department of Defense is there. And what they basically did is they opened a whole department and took someone and made him a department head and assigned a whole department towards UFOs. Now, because they did this, they also made it very clear that there are pilots and people, but a lot of pilots who are saying they've seen things that can't be explained. And they don't report these things because people clown them. They think they're weird. You're just, I don't know, it was just the altitude, or they make excuses like that. And so, you say stuff like that to the people, they start to become reclusive and say, I'm just not going to say anything because it can cost me my job. You keep thinking that I'm weird and stuff like that, but I'm seeing something flying next to me that's not showing up on the radar, and I'm looking dead at it, and then it disappears in front of me within seconds. It's completely gone, out of eye shot, and it went straight ahead. This thing, I'm doing 500 miles an hour. This thing disappeared in front of me. Looked like it did Mach 10. And we have nothing that can do Mach 10. And we have nothing American that can do Mach 10 and come from 500 to, this is really happening. And there's, some film of these, these happenings. And I talked to one guy at the VA hospital. He's a veteran like myself, older guy, he's in his 60s. And he told me, he said, listen, one day he was in the Navy. He said one day we were in, I don't know, one of those oceans, Atlantic, Pacific, or whatever. He said we had just came from an island or land, and we had all got brand new watches. They were Rolex watches, very nice. He said we went back, jumped on the ship. He said we went through the Bermuda Triangle. Everybody has a theory about the Bermuda Triangle. He said while we were going through the Bermuda Triangle, all of our watches stopped. He said I was outside on the deck. We were all outside, and we noticed that not only did our watches stop, all the watches on the ship, they also stopped. He said, and when they stopped, there was like a mist or something. And then he said, while we were standing out there, a saucer-like metal object, round, metal object passed right up under them and made no sound and broke no waves. They said they just watched it, went right up under them. And after it disappeared, their watches started again. Everything returned to normal. So I don't believe that this man was lying. I believe what he experienced is he the ship itself did not create this anomaly. That's not what happened. That's not what I think. Even though they probably had something to do with it, but I don't believe they created this anomaly on its own. I believe you have to be in a certain territory for this kind of thing to happen. What I think is that ship passed through a different dimension. That's what I think happened. I believe of course, they were still on the planet. They were still in whatever ocean they were in, but they were passing through a place where dimensions connect. And I believe that where one dimension connects to another dimension, there is no time. In other words, time is completely lost. So whenever their watches started back up, if it was 10 to 3, it still was 10 to 3. So basically, our time on the dimension we know, it's 10 to 3. Whatever time zone it is, it's 10 to 3. In another dimension, it's still 10 to 3. But when you cross those dimensions, there is no time whatsoever. However, the effect of time is let me say this: you're not getting any older, you're not getting any younger. But your heart is still beating, your cells are still flowing, the engine in everything was still working, but time itself has stopped. So it's kind of like moving into the future. All right. Now, I believe the reason why we don't see UFOs all the time but they happen to show up at night a lot, is the same reason we don't see ghosts a lot. Like, we don't see them until we go into a certain place where there is high activity of ghosts. Now, stay with me. It's going to sound weird, but that's okay. This is just a theory. And I'm saying this because I've seen ghosts and I was wide awake. I've seen spirits and I'm just as wide awake as I am now. But I mostly see them. Of course, you mostly see them at night. But here's the thing. I mostly see them during a certain time. And that time is right when I'm fully awake. So I know that they're there, and I wake up and I know that they're there because I'm looking right at it. And I know I'm awake because I can see the surrounding of my room or wherever that I'm at where I've seen them. And I'm like, I know I'm awake. I'm not dreaming. You know, I've even jumped up before and was just looked at, did I just see what I saw? And the answer is absolutely. But why is it that I can't see it now that I'm fully, completely standing up and totally awake? Here's my theory on that. There are, when you take sleeping pills, what's in the sleeping pill is an ingredient that actually comes from your pineal gland or whatever it is. And to help, I think it's serotonin or something like that. I don't know what it is, but it allows you to sleep. And it releases this chemical into your mind and allows you to sleep. But the brain is, of course, still active. So what I think is when you're in sleep and your body gets enough sleep so you're not exactly tired anymore, but yet you're still asleep and you're coming up out of that sleep, the amount of whatever this chemical is still being produced for you to sleep. And I think it's at its either at its least rate or it's at its highest rate, but it's still affecting you, but you're no longer in need of it because you're not sleeping. So I think because you're no longer in need of it and depending on it for what it does, I think it causes you to be able to see what is normally unseeable. So it's doing all this stuff to your body, but remember, your eyes are closed when you're sleeping. So when you're coming out of sleep and you see an object in front of you, this chemical has made you hypersensitive. And I think it's in everyone, of course. And this is why I think that this is one reason why I think you're able to see these UFOs and these ghosts and other paranormal activity when you're either about to fall asleep or when you're coming out of your sleep. It's because of the chemical that's in your brain. And it's not causing these creatures, you're not seeing an illusion. They are really there. It's just that now you're able to see them for what they are. Now, if this chemical was constantly in your mind and you were not in need of it, and you were in a relaxed state, in a perfect state of not REM sleep, but coming out of that sleep, if you could put yourself in that position constantly and have the same amount of whatever that chemical is, I believe that you will always see them. Not only that, you'll always hear them. You'll see them right in front of you. Spirits do not disappear. They don't, you wake up and then they disappear. The whole spiritual world is gone and no spiritual world, there's no spirit around you. We know this is not true according to the Bible. God says, lo, I am always with you. We know this to be true. And we know that in certain places where, it's haunted, that these spirits can be seen and or heard. But a lot of times people can't see them, but they can see them moving things. And they go, my door just shut. And they're like, I didn't see anything shut the door. So it makes you think with all rationale, something shut the door, but I can't see what it was. But I know something shut the door. But because you can't see it, you still have doubts, even though the door shut. So I think if you're able to, like I said, be in that perfect pocket of, with chemical and everything balanced, and I don't know how you would do this, but I believe if this could be reproduced in some way and actually, okay, let me say this. Melanin, which makes our skin dark. They found out that melanin is a superconductor. They found out that it has a bunch of different properties that it's just out of this world, especially when it comes to the sun. And they're probably realizing, one, why African Americans are able to do things that nobody else on the planet can do, especially Africans, and or dark-skinned people like run fast. Every Olympics since the last 40 years, there's been a black man who's won the Olympics, and most of the people who are competing against him are all black. When it comes to the finals, it's just a whole lineup of black people, and they're all from different parts of the world. It's like, why is this true? And some people say because black people have faster red twitch muscles. Hey, salute. Round 2, let's go. But we're talking about paranormal, so everybody's right and everybody's wrong. But this is just a theory I have. This is just me speaking about theories. But nonetheless, so black people supposedly have faster red twitch muscles, which are fast, or red muscles, which are faster, which are fast twitch muscles. And then, of course, there's slow twitch muscles. But here's the thing. Slow twitch muscles are usually used for long distance, right? Well, who holds the record when it comes to, the marathon? Black people. So there is something to be said about melanin itself. Instead of going, this is a regional thing, this is people who come from Africa, they're faster because they come from Africa, not necessarily true. It probably has a lot to do with what's in our skin. Also, melanin is, we all know this, is able to protect you from the sun in a lot of ways that people who don't have melanin are not protected. People who usually have skin cancer are usually white. Even though black people can get it, melanoma, they can get it, of course. I'm not saying that they can't. I'm saying usually it comes, it's attracted to somebody who does not have a lot of melanin in their skin. It's a shield against the sun. And now they're finding out that it's a superconductor also, and it conducts electricity. So that's very interesting. Now, I'm saying all that to say that there are a lot we're finding out just about the human body that we did not know before. Yeah. Melanin itself. Also, melanin, what they've also discovered is they are able to extract melanin and use it in different electronic experiences. So even though people hate dark-skinned people, our skin is very, very valuable because of what's in our skin. So they've been extracting melanin and looking at what melanin does to, electronics and things along that line. And now you're finding out that there's melanin in a lot of things that you're using, clocks and watches and stuff like that. A lot of these things are starting to show up and have melanin in them. This is the same thing that you're made of. Why is that? Who did these crazy studies and found this out? So when you look at it, black people have been experimented on long before Tuskegee, long before they wanted to see if we would live with syphilis and how long syphilis would take before it ate out our brain. Those experiences, that wasn't the only experience. There's been a lot of experiences done on black people and or people who are a darker hue. Chinese people used to experiment on a lot of their victims, and they would find ways to kill their prisoners and write it down. Okay, this person can only breathe this long. This person can survive this long in heat. This person can survive this long, so on and so forth. So these studies have, a lot of them are banned because they're inhumane, but they are still happening. That's why they're trying to get rid of us, bro. Well, I don't think that the Europeans can afford to live without any dark-skinned people. I think if a UFO came down and said, we'll take all your dark-skinned people, they would fight that tooth and nail. Because not only are we a supply of, are we sweat equity, we are a supply of entertainment, but just our being here, just our skin itself, if they could not study our skin and study how the sun doesn't affect us like it affects them, and study why there are Africans with eyes that are blue as the sea. There are Chinese people who can see at night like a cat. There are people who are coming from the African regions are doing some incredible things, and they're born this way. They're born with attributes that are not seen in European countries, continents, and European people whatsoever. There's a whole group of people who have silver eyes. and they're trying to, understand them. Now, I'm not saying that Europeans don't have special attributes to them, because, there are a lot of them that do. There's one woman who's able to actually see through people. There's another woman who can see well over 5 miles away and pretty much read the newspaper. Those people are Europeans. So I'm not saying that there's nothing, they don't have any special things, but what they're finding out is, in order to live longer, in the sun and the way the sun is, and be able to go out and not be hurt by the sun, they have to put something on their skin we don't. They're also finding out that the reason why Black people are faster is simply because of our skin, not because of where we live. Now, mind you, everything in Africa is bigger, and faster, so on and so forth, and when you look at Australia, the same thing, bigger and faster. The original people from Australia were Black people, the Aborigines. So I'm saying that to say, if you took the pineal gland and what's excreted from it to help you sleep, and you manufactured this, and let's say you put it inside glass goggles or whatever, or even contact lenses, I truly believe that you would be able to look around and see any spirit that you want walking back and forth. The problem with that is that spirit will recognize that it's there. And then you could have some problems. I think that spirits want you to know that they're there, but a lot of them don't want you to know they're there. And when they know that they exist, they can, there's some adverse effect to that. Now, there was a movie that came out in the 80s. Forgot what the movie was called, but the movie was more like a documentary, but they made it a movie so people wouldn't get scared. It was about a woman who lived in a house, and this ghost would come and have sex with her all the time. And she couldn't explain it. She was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on. So they called a priest in. Priest tried to exorcise the ghost. Nothing worked, right? So what happened is, it became so renowned what was happening to this woman that the government got involved. And when the government got involved, because they want to know about paranormal activity, because they want to set up some kind of dossier and some kind of defense, just in case a bunch of ghosts just decide to go awry and we have to fight them. We want to know what we're fighting against. So they took this woman who was European. They took this woman and they set up a place, the entity, and a true story, apparently. Yeah, was it called The Entity? Yeah, it was a true story. Well, you've seen it, so I'm glad somebody else has seen it. That way, I'm not just talking out the side of my neck. But what they did was they took this woman and they built in a warehouse. Now, they took a big ass warehouse, emptied it out, and they made a replica of her house. And they made it from the door to her bedroom. So there was the door, hallway, then they made the hallway, and then they made her bedroom. So when they did all this, they said, we're going to film every angle of what we set up here, and we want you to just come in and go to sleep. So she's like, okay, fine. She comes in, she goes to sleep. Next thing you know, her covers are gone. The cameras are picking up anything that moves. Now, these are very sensitive cameras. So they're picking up anything that moves. This is one reason why CT cameras are picking up a lot of stuff. CT cameras, we're just getting this technology, but it's been out for a long time. Nonetheless, so of course, these cameras also have night vision. So it has all the bells and whistles. And mind you, this is 30 years ago. And as soon as this entity comes in, the cameras focus on it. But you can't see it. But you see the cameras move, and then you see her covers move, and then you see her body move, and you see all kind of activity with her. And before it gets to an outrageous amount, What happened is they sprayed what was that? What was it? Nitrous. Uh, what's that you spray into the air and it freezes something? So basically, she wakes up, she gets out of there, this thing flips out. And when it does, it triggers this cold mist that they had. And when it triggered this cold mist, anything that it hits, it freezes solid. When it froze this thing solid, this thing was 2 stories high. And it was not in the shape of a human. So whatever it was using to have sex with her was nothing like the human anatomy. And it was a very, very, very small part of this creature. This thing was huge. They froze it, and when they were looking at it, they did not understand what they were looking at because the spiritual world does not abide by our rules. So if there's a ghost that's pushing something around in your house, that ghost doesn't have to be the size of a human. That ghost can be the size of a blue whale, but you don't know it because you can't see it. All you know is the effect of its being there. This thing was the size of a damn blue whale. It was just huge. And once they froze it, it started fibrulating and it shook so hard that it broke the ice and it ran up out of there. So it realized that you see me, and then it just boom, it cracked the ice went everywhere. This thing got out of there just like that, and it was gone. And they said that it still bothers her today. So, yeah, if you don't believe it, just go look at the movie The Entity. It's very interesting. But like I said, there is a reason why you can see these creatures at night. Now, some people can see them during the day. I've heard them during the day. I've never seen them during the day. But some people can see them during the day. And sometimes, there are people who see them all the time and or hear them all the time. I'm just simply saying that the Department of Defense actually, to me, has what I would consider a Department of Paranormal Activity and or a Department for UFOs. They are actually looking for any suggestion. They said nothing is too silly for them. They're considering any and everything because the UFO sightings have become so frequent. And as you know, recently they released the government has finally said, yes, there are UFOs out there. Like, we're no longer going to hide it. We're no longer going to tell people you're silly because you saw what everybody saw flying over Arizona. We don't have anything that big that flew over Arizona. We have absolutely nothing that flew over Arizona. There's nothing that we have that comes even close to the formation that was in the sky that night over Arizona. And the whole world saw it, but they try to blow it off like it was, some lights. They're not doing that. The government is not doing that anymore. They're not going, you're crazy, lady. They're not doing that. They're taking everything under serious consideration, even though they're going to get a lot of wacky people, but they're going to find out that not only has this stuff been happening long before we got here, and it'll happen long after we're gone, but we are a very, 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 very small part of a big picture. And when we finally open our eyes and we start developing technology where we can see these creatures and probably communicate with them, well, what's going to happen is we're going to start jumping dimensions. People already realize when you sleep, your spirit can go from one dimension to another. But the physical body doesn't travel from one dimension to another. That is going to change. So other anomalies that have been happening are the floating cities. So there has been floating cities in China. There's been floating cities in Africa. And I think in some European countries, and all these kids and people all see the city all of a sudden just peers over them, and it's plain as day, and this city is moving. The same thing happened, 4 or 5 different times. Everybody reported the same thing. There is a floating city out there somewhere. That is not a lie. This thing really does exist. Are there people in it? Absolutely. So it needs to be explained. Also, some of these truths that are coming out there, what I think the government is going to do is finally admit that the world is not moving through space. I think that you can only lie to us not much longer, simply because, one, we haven't even tried to go back to the moon. We haven't tried to go to Mars, even though Elon Musk wants to go to Mars. If you look at what's happening, the space programs are regressing. And for one, the space program, the US space program has been shut down and passed on and privatized. That's not an accident, not whatsoever. So all the lies of space and the planets and all that, those are all going to come to a screeching halt, because it's going to be like, you can't lie to us anymore. What does the earth really look like? And what these planets that you made up, we know that they're not real. The sun that you're talking about is so many billions and billions and size, and it's far, far away. You're only going to find out it's not far at all, and it's under their control. We start to know this because China actually released its own sun. China's doing a lot of different stuff. They got the money to do it. But China actually released its own sun. And you've seen where there has actually been 2 suns in the sky, and people are going, how can you explain this? So there's that. So the whole UFO thing is going to break open a vast amount of knowledge that some people are going to be skeptical all the way up until it's just going to be right in their face. Problem with some of this is that once you see them, they see you. And not everybody is going to have the intelligence, to interact with something they don't understand with decorum. People are going to try to shoot them. People are going to, they're going to, attack them. And then once you do that, then you have a war. That's pretty much the sad part about it. But there are so many dimensions that it's uncountable. So you're going to have people, just disappearing and slipping from one dimension into another. It's going to be just like discovering new worlds. It's going to be the same thing. And of course, when you do that, some people just don't come back because they get lost, because they didn't know what they were doing. And there's just a whole danger to it. But that's what I believe is going to happen. But I just wanted to theorize on paranormal activity and why some people can see ghosts, why some people can hear ghosts, and why some people can hear other people, and things along that line when they are deceased. It's because of the chemicals that's in your brain. And I don't know how to develop that, because I'm not a scientist in that realm. I'm just somebody who's theorizing. But, hopefully somebody else will be saying the same thing that I'm saying. And when they do, somebody who has the, fortitude to put something together, they will. And it won't take them no time. And the next thing you know, spirit glasses will come out. And it'll be just as regular as, anything else, apple pie. And, first they'll cost a lot, and then there'll be so many people who will copy it, copy the science. Next thing you know, the price will drop, and then they'll be laying all over the place. First they'll cost $2,000 to get a hold of them, then they'll cost 2 cents, and people will be selling them after 5 and dime. You know what I'm saying? Then there'll be different types of spirit glasses. There'll be the best and there'll be the worst. But nonetheless, people will have them and they will be able to see walking entities right in front of them and communicate with them. That's just what I think. And I think the Pentagon is going to have to get on that same theory, uh, because everything that's happening now is not an accident. There's no accident that Hitler and his group of scientists, the Bell scientists, they made a dimension doorway. That wasn't an accident. He discovered something from ancient text, and he's like, I want to know if we can do this. And that's exactly what they did. They were able to travel from one part of the earth to the other within a second. They were able to walk through one door and end up in another door. And some of these doors have been discovered by random people. One guy leaned up against a mountain in China, and he came out in France or something like that. He just walked right through a mountain, and boom, he came out, boom, he was in France. So these things really do exist, and they're all over the place. And some of the stuff that you watch, if you watch anime like I do, you'll hear people talk about ley lines. The first time I heard about ley lines was in a comic book, was in the X-Men comic book. And I didn't know what they were, but I was like, what, I kept reading. I was like, a ley line. So ley lines are spiritually positive, meaning the spirits are attracted to these lines and they circle the circumference of the earth. And what people have found out is that if you are standing on one of these ley lines, you can contact another dimension and certain beings will answer you. They're finding that churches, there are a lot of European churches that are built on ley lines. And these areas that they're built on, they're finding out that this was not by accident. It's because they got a positive effect when they stood in these areas. So they said, we're going to build a church here. Other churches that are not built towards gods, or towards God, they're built towards some type of God, are built on ley lines. So this is actually true. You can go ahead and look it up. Biggest problem with that is, once again, you're inviting something you totally don't understand, and the being that you invite into this world is not exactly on your side. So there's that. But ley lines are a real thing. Another place you'll hear about them is Hellboy. So I think Hellboy 1. I think that's actually how Hellboy got here. So yeah, so they're actually a real thing, because I thought it was just in the comic books and movies. I thought people made it up. Turns out that they are really a thing. So there's that. And also, some people release things into this world that don't belong here. So the whole concept of Hellboy, a lot of it, what they're saying in there is very true. There are things coming through these ley lines by people, because people are conduits. We are full of electricity. We're not just flesh and blood, and water. We're full of electricity. Our heart generates a lot of electricity. This is why some people can actually, I saw a video where a man wanted to start his car. So he popped the trunk. He put his hand, he wanted to jump his car. He put his hand on one of the posts and the other one, and he went like this, and you saw electronic spark, and he touched the post, and the car started right up. So we are full of electricity. One person who recognized this more than anybody was Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla, he discovered that there is a current that is around the whole planet. And this current is free. It doesn't cost you anything. And you can power anything with this current. And Nikola Tesla was able to grab, um, what he would do was he would touch where the current was coming from, and he would hold a light bulb in his hand, and then boom, that current would light the bulb. So the current was going through him, didn't harm him whatsoever, didn't burn him. Like, you can't do that now because the electricity that we are using is manufactured electricity. The power grids that we use is manufactured. These power grids, or the manufactured power that we're using, is harmful to the body, and it is, to me, a negative energy. The light that we see here is a negative energy. The light that Nikola Tesla discovered that was all over the planet is a positive energy. You can stand right in the middle of it and it wouldn't hurt you. We also know that there are civilizations that are under our feet, literally. There are civilizations that were better than the one that is today, but those civilizations have been built over, and a lot of the buildings that you see are on top of whole cities. Whole cities gone because they want nothing to they don't want you to know anything about these civilizations. They want you to focus on this civilization. They want you to go to school and learn about this civilization, and for you to create workers to go out and keep this civilization going. They don't want you to know about the other civilization. I think that was Thomas Edison's philosophy. He just wanted to create workers. He didn't want to create thinking people. He wanted to create drones. And this is one of the problems they had with Nikola Tesla. And this is why Edison and J.P. Morgan didn't back up Nikola Tesla, because they knew when he said the energy was free, and said, no, we don't like free. We want to be able to charge people. And this is why you have a lot of people who discover how to use this energy and start mass producing it, and or try to mass produce it. They will get terminated. We found different examples of that. People who learn how to take a tank of gas and pretty much can drive hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles without refueling. The young man who discovered how to do that, he died for it. So nonetheless, I think that the current that is all around us, that we don't know how to harness because we didn't learn this, I think that current was used on the vehicles, the Vimatas, and those vehicles were able to travel around the world with ease. I also believe that the reason why there is a pyramid on every continent is because it wasn't so hard to make a pyramid back then. If it was hard to make a pyramid, there would not be a pyramid on every continent. It just wouldn't be. There is either a pyramid structure or a ziggurat, which is a pyramid, on every continent. When you look at the pyramids in Giza, people go, who built the pyramid? When you look at the pyramids in Mexico, nobody asks who built the pyramid, because everybody knows who built the pyramids in Mexico, the Mexicans. But they ask who built the pyramid in Giza. Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they go, the Egyptians built the pyramids? And then they also say, who built the Sphinx? Because they found watermarks on the Sphinx. And then the Sphinx was built long before the pyramids. And they're like, the Egyptians weren't here when the Sphinx was built. Who built the Sphinx? And they're calling it the Sphinx as if it's one. Now they found out that there's more Sphinx. Not only that, the pyramids, that we concentrate and we think we got to go to another continent to see, we believe all the hype about that particular pyramid in the tomb of Tutankhamun and all this other stuff, and we found out that it wasn't a tomb at all. The pyramids are not tombs. The kings were buried in mountains. They were buried in the Valley of the Kings. All of them. Pyramid is not a tomb at all. So why would they spend all that money and all that labor building something that was not meant for a king? It was not meant for you to die in. When you go into the pyramids, there are no prayers. The Egyptians strongly believed in the afterlife. This is why they had servants die with them, so they can serve them in the afterlife. There are no hieroglyphics talking about prayer and the afterlife and all that. There's none of that in the pyramids. Go and look it up. Nonetheless, here's another thing that kicks you in the ass. Why are there pyramids right here in the United States? But you can't go to them. The government has stopped you from going to the pyramids in the United States. You know where they're at? The Grand Canyon. And when you look at those pyramids, if you can find pictures of them, you're going to see a difference between the people who so-called built those pyramids and the people who built the pyramids in Giza. The big difference is the people who built the pyramids in Giza look bronze. The people who built the pyramids right here in the United States look black, pitch black, very, very dark, darker than my hair. They're black people. Why? Why are we not allowed to go to see the pyramids that are in the Grand Canyon? Why is the government stopping us from going to see these pyramids? It's just something to think about. My theory is they don't want us to discover what power the pyramids really have. There is a whole row of pyramids that are in the Pacific Ocean. You could probably Google them. And we're not talking about small pyramids. We're talking about colossal buildings, all on the ocean floor. And we're not talking about 3 of them that are sitting in a cluster. We're talking about like 30, 40 of them. Just built, boom, 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 right alongside of each other, boom. Just like almost like a city or something. Like a trail of breadcrumbs. Like a mile under the ocean. Now we know that the ocean wasn't, there. And it was, that land was dry at one point. But who built them? And why? And why can't we go and visit the ones that are, above sea level? Why can't we do that? Just a theory. I don't believe that the pyramids were made for dead kings whatsoever. I believe that the pyramids are a power source. I believe that power source is connected to positive electricity. I believe the melanin that is in your skin, for those of you who have melanin, I believe the melanin that's in your skin helped. It didn't help. Okay. I believe they were synonymous. They had a relationship. The power that came from the pyramid came from the people. I think that a group of dark-skinned people, black people, standing in the sun next to a pyramid that was covered in like the golden towel, or not there was a towel that was built over them. It didn't look brick like it does now. There was a type of material that they put over it, and the top of it. And when the sun hit it, it was hard to look at. And I think that powered the people to do extraordinary things. I think the reason why African Americans and or Africans or just the African people across the country or across the continents in the whole world are able to go from 1 to 28 miles an hour faster than anybody else is simply because at one time they were harnessing that power. The melanin in our skin was used, and it was used to accelerate us to a ridiculous speed. What we did with that speed is probably thought. That's what I believe. I don't believe it was by accident, because we know that there were giants that were 35 feet plus in the land, and some of them were even bigger than that. We know that the whole story of Poseidon was probably true. This was a creature that was probably 2 miles long, 2 miles tall, and we know that the mountain, shoot, what's that mountain called? I forgot the amount what the mountain's called, but people think it's a mountain and it's not. It's actually a whole tree because it's sheared off right at the top. Uh, and the material that it's made of is made up of a tree. So I think that the reason why the pyramids lost their significance is because of the flood, where the giants were pretty much wiped out. And there is, biblical truths to the flood. And when you look at the book of Deuteronomy, when they were talking about before the flood, they talked about the giants that were in the land and how tall the giants were. They also talked about the people who fought against the giants. They talked about the giants that were in the land of Canaan. They talked about the giants that were in the Caucasus Mountains, and the people who beat the giants that were in the Caucasus Mountains. They were Caucasians at one point, but those people also at one point uh, uh, came into contact with the Jews, and God told the Jews to stay away from the people who were in the Caucasus Mountains because they killed the Amanis, who were giants, and God gave them that place because God knew they were warlike people and wanted them to kill these giants. So we also know that when the flood came and it talked about the giants in Genesis, it said that the giants were in the land during those days and after. How is that possible? How is it possible that the flood wiped out every living creature except those who were on the boat, but the giants were in the land of Canaan? The giants, according to the book of Deuteronomy, were in the Caucasus Mountains. How did that happen? For one, our understanding of how the giants got here is skewed. Our understanding of how the giants got here is the giants slept with angels that were rebellious and saw that women were beautiful and came into them. This is totally not true. The angels did not come and sleep with women. They didn't. They said the sons of man came into them. And they had the Nephilim, and the Nephilim were of great renown. The sons of man. This is a species that is no longer here and or in hiding, but this is a particular type of man. This wasn't an angel. This was a particular type. Now, we know there are different species of man. Now, they tell us that there was two, Homo sapien, and then Homo erectus, and all this other stuff. The cavemen that had a larger bodies, but they weren't as smart as us. Listen, I don't believe none of that. When you look in the Bible and it talks about Adam, it didn't say Adam was the first man. And when you keep reading about Adam and Eve and then their children, it says that Cain, who killed Abel, went into the city of Nod. If it was just Adam, Eve, and then Cain, and he had two children, Cain and Abel, how did he go into the city of Nod? Where did the city of Nod come from? Adam was the first man who was of God's heart. He's what God wanted man to be. Man was already here and very rebellious. So the Bible is what, 2,000 years old? There are civilizations that are 13,000 years old. How do you explain it? There were species of man here before Adam was here, but those men were rebellious to God. God created a man and he protected him, but this man was of God. Wasn't a God, he was of God. He was what God wanted man to be, because all the other species of man were all rebellious. You can look through the book of Genesis and so on and so forth. Another thing, people talk about Lilith. Lilith is not mentioned in the Bible whatsoever. So they're trying to say it was all started by a woman, Lilith. There is not one mention of Lilith in the Bible. I don't know where people are getting this from. They just want to pump women up to be something that they're not. Women are beautiful and glorious in their own right, but they weren't. It's not a chicken or the egg theory here. All right. So at any rate, but like I'm saying, I'm trying to tie all this into the supernatural. I believe, just me believing that once the government, now that they've opened this door to accept anybody's theory, I think that they're going to find out and probably regret, especially when you're trying to find out where a UFO comes from. The answer is underwater. But they're going to find out that these dimensions that they're going to open probably had a lot to do with pyramids and ziggurats and the sun and the angle of the sun and 3.14 pi and all these numbers and stuff. They're probably going to realize that a lot of this power that was generated by the sun and was pinged on every continent. Listen, the same structure is on every continent. In order for that to happen, you would have to have the human experience would have to be the same on every continent. So when the earth was a Pangea, everybody lived on one continent, but everybody had the same understanding. We know this because when we look at the biblical times, we know that the Tower of, Babel was being built by every group of people that was on the planet. Every group of people was in on that, and they wanted to build it up. And then they said God came down, and he made it so nobody spoke the same language. Now, if they're building the Tower of Babel, what threat would that be for God to come down? This is what the Bible says. God came down and saw what they were doing. And he said that man could do anything they put their mind to. What threat would this be for God? The Tower of Babel. What threat would this be? There was a lot, and this was, being done by Nimrod, who was, I think it was Nimrod. I think Nimrod was the one who was controlling this. Nimrod the hunter. So what I'm saying is, to the civilizations that were before us, that were more advanced than we are, they know far greater dangers that we know. They know far more technology that we know. But our civilization constantly stifled what we theorized to be true. They killed off people who would come up with certain answers. They destroyed technology that got close to some answers. But now, those same threats that happened to the civilizations before us are now coming into view. These floating cities, these people who water is our air is their water. There was a situation or a story where these people were at a church. While they were at a church, they heard a loud sound. So they went outside to see what it was, and they saw it was an anchor. And it was anchored to a floating ship in the sky. And there were there was a guy who jumped overboard off of the ship, and he came down to what we call land, but to him, he was actually swimming in the air. Well, he saw us, and we saw him, and one person grabbed him, and he said, "Let me go, I'm drowning." So the person let him go, and he swam back up to the ship. They weighed anchor and took off, and everybody saw the ship. How do you explain it? I think the Pentagon is they can't hide anymore. Even France, have said UFOs are true. They can't. Once they open that door, there's going to be a flood of information that is going to come through our computers, our telephones, headphones, and hell, we're going to be afraid of our own shadow. But the Pentagon will mobilize, and they're going to create a paranormal army. Have you ever seen the movie Spectre? It's like a YouTube movie. Spectral. It's going to be kind of like that. Things that you can't see with your normal eye. But according to my theory, you're going to be able to see them with the normal eye. You're going to need some technological help. And if I'm right, then, whatever the chemical is in the pineal gland that I'm talking about, that's going to be used the same way that melanin is being used in electronical items and electric items now. Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. And I'm here for it. I'm here to see it because I've been seeing these spirits all my life, listening to them. They'll wake me up. Sometimes I'll be wide awake and they'll do something. Been dealing with this all my life, and I need to know more about what I'm dealing with. And now that the Pentagon is taking all information into consideration and taking all information seriously, I think they're going to answer a lot of my questions, and or other people who are spiritually in tune to these acts of the unexplained. And I think once they dig deeper, they are going to arm themselves with the power that Nikola Tesla talked about, because they're going to find out that they're going to find out that they can't blow up spirits. You're not going to be able to blow them up. You're not going to arm yourself with M16 and shoot a spirit in the head, and that spirit's going to fall and you win. That's not what's going to happen. You're going to have to use electrical charge that is foreign to them and is common to us. And that electricity is going to come from melanin. And it's going to be most prominent in melanated people. This is going to start a gold rush uh, towards melanated people. And then it's going to start a surface war because the melanated people aren't going to just lay down and let this happen. And then once that's over with, they're going to find out that we're all fighting the same people. And then the continent of Africa is going to be flipped on its head because the people in Africa are constantly under the thumb of the European because of the resources. Well, one of the resources that comes out of that the Chinese are using it are the people. The Chinese believe the more people that you have that we can utilize, blah blah blah. So the Chinese, they always have a large workforce that they want to employ in one way or another. Now the Chinese have made deals with poor African countries and said, we'll go ahead and build up your superstructure, which is your water, your heating, your cooling, your ports. We'll go ahead and help you build up your superstructure if you give us some of your land. Well, what they're really looking for on the land is gold. Yeah, that's what they're really looking for. Why are the pyramids? Why is there so much gold involved with pyramids? Not only that, gold is everywhere. I mean, when I say gold is everywhere, it's everywhere. But why the concentration of gold? It's because of what gold can do. That's it. It's because of the relationship gold has with energy and how it can amplify energy. Now, I'm not a scientist, but gold has a certain property when it comes to electricity. And I think that once all of these things are realized, that the melanin, that melanin itself is going to be so valued that, well, they're already trying to manipulate melanin and reproduce it. They're doing that now. That's no accident. When they look at black people and tell you that you're worthless and all this other stuff, you're coded in one of the most valuable elements that ever existed. And that value is going to go sky high once the Pentagon opens these floodgates. It's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be ridiculous. The easiest way to produce melanin is by what? Childbirth. What's the easiest way? Is to have more black people. And the blacker the better. This is going to be a hard concept for the rulers of this planet. It is. You're going to have a lot of people who just don't get that. But when they find out why it's important, when they find out what they're fighting against, and they can't fight against it without melanin, without gold, without positive electricity, the things that we don't look at today as value other than gold, when they start looking at it and going, this person is important because of their skin, this is the total opposite of what we've been taught for hundreds and hundreds of years. Black people are not valued. They're devalued. It is the total lie ever taught to you. Jesus was a white man. No, Jesus was whitewashed. All the things that you believe in, all whitewashed. Why can't we go to the pyramids right here in the U.S.? and look right at the dark-skinned people who made the pyramids? Why can't we? Because they don't want you to know the truth. And this is not a theory. This is just the truth. This is not a black person going, I'm more valuable than you are, yada, 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 because I believe we all have our properties. Listen, there's just some things that black people won't do that white people will. There's some things that white people have discovered that black people don't discover. And there are some things that black people discovered that they don't tell you. You know, we were sailing around, you know, when they were sailing around. So when they were like, Eric the Red discovered America, Eric the Red didn't discover America. America was already here. And America wasn't called America. America was named after a Frenchman named Americus Vespucci. You don't land somewhere and then say, I'm going to name this after. Like, get out of here. It's already occupied by dark-skinned people. All over the place, millions of them. So I'm just saying, you're going to find out, and you guys can come back and reference this video in about 20 years, you know, and just scale through it. You're going to find out a lot of what I'm saying is correct. You know, I'm a little weird, but I'm a good weird. I'm the sciencey weird that thinks on possibilities that people just normally don't think about. You know what I mean? And it's unattractive to some people, and that's okay. I don't mind being weird on my own. But some people are starting to listen to me. Some people are starting to go, you know what, you're right. This happened, this happened, this happened. I'm like, yeah, just wait. It's gonna happen again. And I'm starting to apply my weirdness and my philosophies all through my life in different parts of my life. And things are starting to turn out better for me because I'm accepting what I am. I'm strange, you know. But like I said, I'm a good strange. I'm not the bad strange. You know, I'm not to go beat somebody up strange. I'm the strange that looks at, man in, 30 different ways and ask the question of where we're going and where we've been. And I try to examine the lies that have been told us. We never been to the moon. Never will be. We can't go to the moon. We can't. This is not the only planet in our existence. There are a bunch of them. The only way to travel to these planets is to jump from one dimension to another. You can't leave this planet physically and go to another planet. All that is a lie. NASA knows this. You can't go from here to Mars. You can't do it. It is impossible to go from here to Mars. You can't. But you can go from here to another planet through another dimension. You can go through another door. And you don't need a rocket ship to do it. Rocket ships are foreign to rocket ship, cars. All these things are foreign to the planet. This is why the electricity that we put out, these power plants, when they blow up, then you have Chernobyl. You use natural resources to make these huge power plants, coal, and they put out all this electricity. And then when they go boom, the planet is affected to where things stop growing in that planet. That was never meant to be. It was never positive energy. Yeah, it was BS. Positive energy would never destroy this planet. The electricity that you and I use is made, it comes from a power grid. That power grid is foreign to this planet. These spaceships they use and all this other stuff, it's all foreign to the planet. This is why the planet rebels. This is why you got, the the polar ice caps melting at an alarming rate. This is why you have the weather changing, and you have more tornadoes now than you ever did. And they're not small tornadoes. You're starting to see F5s. F5 is the biggest tornado you see. Look, it wouldn't surprise me if you saw an F6 tornado this year in a place that tornadoes don't usually go. There's usually a mix that has to happen for a tornado to come down, sit down, and start destroying things. All of that's going to be completely thrown out the window. They're going to be like, how did this happen? It's going to be in a very populated area. It's going to be in a city. And it's gonna be like an F6, 5 mile wide, spinning at 600 mile an hour, pissed off. And they're gonna ask, how did this happen? I'm telling you, it's gonna happen with probably in a couple of years. I expect it any day. It's gonna be a new category of tornado. It's gonna touch down and devastate anything it comes close to. A bunch of people are gonna be dead and missing. And it's not going to just touch down and bounce like tornadoes do. It's going to touch down, stay down. It's going to be completely foreign to what we know. And the answer is how it is created and how can it be and how can it cause all this destruction and all of these houses. And it's going to be plain and simple. Because we are doing things that are foreign to the planet, so the planet created something that is foreign to you to fight back against it. Keep blowing stuff up. Keep sending howitzers over there and blowing up the planet, because all I see is big holes in the planet. And it's just going to be a matter of time before the planet fights back. This is a living creature that we're on. And I'm telling you, it's going to wipe out a bunch of people. And there's no defense. You can't shoot a tornado. You have no defense against it. Even your warnings. Watch. Believe me when I say there's going to be a F6, F7 tornado. It's going to come down and wipe a bunch of people out. And there's going to be all this how and why. And it's simple. You pissed off the planet. I mean, if you start looking scientifically at things, you can't think that it's that far off. Okay, so when you look at the desalinization of salt water, that is in relationship with the Gulf Stream and the jet stream. So the Gulf Stream is a band of water that goes up under. It is a band of water that goes along the ocean floor at a certain speed. And this water goes from fresh to salt water, and it has to be there has to be so much salt in this water in order to make it function and push at the speed it does. And all of these scientific things have to happen for the Gulf Stream to boom, be productive and stay on, I guess you would say, pH balance. Matter of fact, that's exactly right. It's a pH balance to it. Cold water is produced, falls, turns to warm, rises. Once that warm water rises, hits the air, boom, it goes into the jet stream. The jet stream is the same thing. It's a band of air that goes up and around and boom, goes down to the Gulf Stream, and the whole thing starts all over again. Well, once you interrupt, disrupt, or corrupt that very delicate balance of water and air, then you have anomalies that will start to happen. You can, I'm just going to guess, you can probably have volcanoes that all of a sudden wake up. And you can, I'm just going to guess, you can have birds that fall out of the sky in Mexico all at once with no explanation. You can have beach dolphins by the hundreds that, all die. Whales, head toward shores that don't belong, die. You can have, you can hear strange sounds that nobody can understand. Nobody knows where these sounds are coming from. And I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing. And you can also have occurrences that you think are natural, but they're not. And this is where tornadoes come in. So, one of the things that, and I'm not a tornadoologist or whatever the hell that is, but one of the things that causes tornadoes are pressure, right? Air pressure. So, in a major city, the air is warmer in a major city than it is in, the outskirts, right? So what happens when you have warm air in a place that is stagnant, or the warm air is constant, and it's getting warmer, and the airflow that is usually over this area becomes disrupted? What happens is nature finds a way to correct it. And what it does is it wipes out whatever is creating this anomaly with an anomaly. Now, I could be wrong, and I don't mind being wrong. Actually, I hope I am. But if this does happen, to me, this is why it happened. You took a major city. We'll go to New York. Everybody goes to New York. New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. You look at these cities, and a lot of these cities are what? Built on the water, right? Chicago, right along the water. Pittsburgh, Three Rivers, right along the water. Philadelphia, on the water. New York, right there on the water. Everything right there on the water. So let's add it up. Tornadoes usually come with what? Flat surface, right? Where the air pressure is different. The air pressure is warmer, right? There's a warmer cloud. And then there's a sudden change in pressure, and it causes that air pressure to come down. I think that's how it works. One of you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't mind being wrong. So, what are the chances that on a hot summer day, no, scratch that. What are the chances that on a cold winter day, snowy day, where the snow is melting actually? So it goes from below 30, then it climbs to, and this is just within the city, then it climbs to suddenly 50, 60 degrees in that day. It started off 10 degrees. The snow is melting once it hits above 32. But the snow melts at such a rapid rate that's completely uncommon. When the snow is melting, you're watching the snow melt right in front of your face. And you're like, why is the snow melting so fast? Well, because of the air around it that's supposed to be cold is not cold. Because the amount of humans that are in one area have finally tipped the scale. And as a collective of how many millions, I don't know, it needs on this perfect day where it's supposed to stay cold all day naturally, because there's so many humans here producing heat, that heat rises. That heat rises. When that heat crashes against the cold that's above it, naturally, what's supposed to happen is the snow melts, evaporates, water goes up in the cloud, whole thing starts again, right? But now that one more human is here and has tipped the scale, the snow melts before it's time. The water vaporizes and rushes to the top. The pH balance of the cloud above you is disrupted. Now pH balance is disrupted, it automatically sends an antibody down in order to fix whatever the problem was, whatever made this area sick. That antibody is a tornado. You are the disease. Tell me it can't happen. Some scientists can get on here and be like, well, you're completely wrong. Thank you. I want to be wrong. Because, I'm talking out the side of my neck. Nonetheless, we've been having a string of tornadoes that can't be explained. Coming out of nowhere. Coming out of nowhere. Why? They're not coming to times that they're supposed to be coming, and they're not coming in the same places that they're supposed to be coming. How's this happening? Just a thought, just a theory. Thank you guys for listening. I'm done rambling. You guys have a great day.